Polling for Phase 4 of Assembly elections in West Bengal underway. Polling being held in 44 constituencies across 5 districts in the 4th phase. Security forces resort to firing after violence breaks out in polling booth in Cooch Behar. Campaigning in full swing for remaining phases of assembly elections in West Bengal. Prime Minister holds election rally at Siliguri. Leaders from other political parties also on campaigning spree. India's vaccination coverage nears the 10 crore mark. Meanwhile, number of cases continue to rise. Maharashtra imposes weekend lockdown. Rajasthan extends duration of night curfew. Election Commission to issue strict instructions to follow COVID protocol during election campaigning. In international news, US President Joe Biden unveils $1.5 trillion budget proposal. The massive proposal, which focuses on health, education and climate, is a precursor to its official financial year 2022 budget proposal. Namaskar and welcome. You're watching DT India on this broadcast. I'm Sakal Bhatt. In the next half an hour, we'll get to the all top stories, national, international. First up, news on election front. In West Bengal, voting is underway as we speak for the 4th phase of assembly elections in 44 assembly seats of North and South Bengal today. And as per the ECI, polling percentage stands at 52.89% till 1:30 p.m. reportedly. The special facilities being provided at the polling stations include mandatory sanitization of polling station, thermal checking of voters at entry points, either by polling staff or paramedical staff or an ASHA worker. Now, out of 44 seats, 11 seats in South 24 Parganas, 10 in Hooghly and 9 in Howrah are witnessing voting in South Bengal today, while voters across 9 assembly seats in Cooch Behar and 5 in Alipurdwar district are also exercising their franchise. About 373 candidates are in the fray. The polling will conclude across 5 districts at 6:30 p.m. Meanwhile, campaigning for the 5th phase is on in full swing, with leaders of the BJP and TMC leaving no stone unturned to woo the electorate. Prime Minister Modi addressed election rally at Siliguri today. Addressing people, he said the TMC is losing West Bengal assembly elections while BJP is winning it.
नॉर्थ बंगाल की इस धरती ने आज ऐलान कर दिया है, टीएमसी सरकार जा रही है, बीजेपी सरकार आ रही है। बंगाल में नववर्ष शुरू होने वाला है। नववर्ष में बुराई पर अच्छाई की जीत होने जा रही है, बीजेपी की जीत होने जा रही है।
Prime Minister Modi also said the time has come to witness change in the political environment of West Bengal, adding that BJP will ensure a syndicate-free West Bengal.
बंगाल में दशकों से जिस तरह का राजनीतिक वातावरण बना दिया गया है, वो बदलने का समय आ गया है। अब 16 मुक्त बंगाल बनेगा। अब सिंडिकेट मुक्त बंगाल बनेगा। अब कटमनी मुक्त बंगाल बनेगा।
Meanwhile, violence rocked Cooch Behar's Sitakuchi Assembly constituency in poll-bound West Bengal today. 4 people were reportedly dead in the clashes, including an 18-year-old first-time voter. The incident took place around 8 a.m. within an hour after the polling in 44 constituencies took off. Meanwhile, Election Commission has Adjourned polling at polling station 126 of Sita Kulirichi Assembly constituency in Cooch Behar. Reacting on the incident, Prime Minister Modi has termed the incident as very saddening and also condoled the demise. Addressing a rally in Siliguri, Prime Minister Modi urged the Election Commission to take stern action against the guilty.
दीदी और टीएमसी की मनमानी बंगाल में नहीं चलने दी जाएगी। मेरा चुनाव आयोग से आग्रह है कि कूच बिहार में जो हुआ उसके दोषियों पर सख्त से सख्त कार्रवाई हो। और दीदी, ये हिंसा लोगों को सुरक्षा बलों पर आक्रमण करने के लिए उकसाने के तरीके, चुनाव प्रक्रिया में रोड़े अटकाने के तरीके दीदी आपको नहीं बचा पाएंगे। आपके 10 साल के कुकर्मों से ये हिंसा आपकी रक्षा नहीं कर सकती है।
Amid rising coronavirus cases, the Election Commission has flagged instances of star campaigners and political leaders not wearing masks while campaigning and asked them to follow in all seriousness the guidelines on COVID-appropriate behavior issued by it last year. In a letter to leaders of all recognized political parties, the poll panel stressed that non-compliance of instructions during a period of public interface will attract action. Taking a serious view of the laxity in maintaining the norms, the EC said that by not allowing or following the guidelines, the political parties and candidates are exposing themselves as well as the public attending such election meetings to the grave danger of infection. Adding that as political parties are expected to be the torch bearers for the campaign against COVID, the poll panel asserted that leaders must demonstrate by their personal example and nudge all supporters in the beginning of rally meetings, campaign itself to wear masks, use sanitizers and put in place crowd control measures as per social distancing norms. Well, taking off vaccination drive in the country, the cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccination doses administered in the country is nearing 10 crore mark. A total of 9 crore 80 lakh 75,160 vaccine doses have been given so far, while total 34 lakh 15,055 vaccine doses were given till 8 p.m. yesterday, the 84th day of nationwide COVID-19 vaccination. Let us now take a look at the COVID-19 update from across the country. As per the Union Health Ministry, these are the numbers on your screen. 77,567 recoveries recorded in the last 24 hours, taking the cumulative total of recovered patients to 1 crore 19 lakh 90,859. And with this, the recovery rate currently stands at 9.80%. India's total active caseload stands at over 10.46 lakh today. The country's present active caseload consists of 7.93% of the total positive cases. The fatality rate stands at 1.28%. And with the second wave of COVID-19 in India, several cities are now implementing strict restrictions to curb the spread of the disease, from night curfews and weekend lockdowns to shutdowns in many public places. In Mumbai, night curfew has been imposed from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. on weekdays, and complete lockdown, weekend lockdowns from 8 p.m. Friday to 7 a.m. Monday until 30th April. During these hours, no one is allowed to be out in public without a valid reason. The rule exempts essential workers. Also, no more than 5 people are allowed to gather between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. on weekdays. And over in Rajasthan, to prevent the surge in COVID-19 cases, state government has imposed night curfew in 8 cities of Rajasthan with effect from Saturday till 30th of April. As per an order by the Rajasthan government, night curfew has been imposed in 9 cities, namely Ajmer, Alwar, Bhilwara, Chittorgarh, Dungarpur, Jaipur, Jodhpur, Kota and Mount Abu Road, starting from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Although in Udaipur, the night curfew will start from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan today addressed Homeopathy Roadmap for Integrative Medicine conference organized by Central Council for Research in Homeopathy in Vigyan Bhavan. The event was attended by renowned doctors and scientists in the field of Ayush. The event witnessed launch of several new portals which will lead way forward in this domain. In the event, Union Minister Harshvardhan said that our national health policy should lay stress on Ayush to increase development in the domain.
National health policy of India recognizes the need to nurture Ayush systems of medicine through the development of infrastructural facilities of teaching institutions, improving quality control of drugs, capacity building of institutions as well as professionals, and generating quality research evidence.
And the minister added that Ayush proved to be a vital source of diagnosis during COVID times.
As a result of the intervention of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and Ministry of Ayush, use of Ayush systems of medicine was permitted for COVID-19 in an integrated manner in designated COVID treatment centers, and this has in turn provided encouraging results.
In the UN Security Council formula meeting on Myanmar, India condemned the use of violence in Myanmar and condoled the loss of lives there. Addressing the meeting, India's Deputy Permanent Representative to United Nations, K. Nagaraj Naidu, said that India is convinced the rule of law must be upheld in the state of Myanmar.
India condemns the use of violence in Myanmar and deeply condoles the loss of lives. It is essential to observe maximum restraint. India is convinced that there should be no falling back on the path to democracy in Myanmar. The rule of law must be upheld, and the process of democratic transition, which India has long supported, must be taken forward. The first and most immediate step in this regard is the release of detained leaders.
He has also welcomed the efforts of ASEAN in finding a solution to the issue and expressed hope that UN will play its role rightly at this crucial situation.
We welcome the efforts of ASEAN in finding a solution to the issue. We also firmly believe that the United Nations should play its role and not be found wanting during this crucial phase. The Security Council has repeatedly expressed its hope that the Secretary General's Special Envoy would visit Myanmar as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, ousted Myanmar lawmakers on Friday urged the United Nations Security Council to take action against the military over 1st February coup, as an independent think tank warned the 15 council members that the Asian state was on the brink of a collapse. The acting foreign minister for a group of ousted lawmakers known as CRPH, trying to re-establish the civilian government, said people in Myanmar are ready to pay any cost to get back their rights and freedom.
I would like to extend an invitation to the international community to support our fight for democracy. Firstly, we recognize the reservations of the international community in terms of direct physical intervention to stop the military systematic and targeted violence against the people of Myanmar and against the democratic forces. We are deeply concerned that if the Thermidor does not stop its present course of conduct, the situation inside the country will continue to deteriorate and will cause further human suffering. This would inevitably instigate economic instability and potentially leads to massive refugee outflows across Myanmar border and into the wider region.
Also, a senior advisor on Myanmar with the International Crisis Group, Richard Horsey, on Friday told the UN meeting that Myanmar stands at the brink of state failure.
Myanmar is at the brink of state failure, of state collapse. This is not hyperbole or rhetoric. It is my sober assessment of a likely path forward. The vast majority of the population does not want military rule and will do whatever it takes to prevent that outcome. The actions of the regime aren't just morally reprehensible, they're also extremely dangerous. Not only has the military been unable to consolidate its attempted coup and effectively govern the country, but also its actions may be creating a situation where the country becomes ungovernable.
As many as 600 people have been killed by security forces cracking down on protests against the coup. The country has ground to a standstill because of the protests and widespread strikes against military rule. The junta on Friday, in fact, said protests were dwindling in Myanmar and it will hold elections within 2 years and hand over power to the elected government, offering the first time frame for a poll since it ousted the elected government on Aung San Suu Kyi. And now let's take a look at the updates of COVID-19 from across the globe. Well, these are the numbers. Worldwide, more than 13 crore 52 lakh people worldwide have so far tested positive for COVID-19, while over 10 crore 88 lakh have recovered from the virus. The deadly virus has so far claimed over 29 lakh 28,000 lives. Globally, that is, and the United States remains the worst affected country by the COVID-19 pandemic. So far, over 3 crore 18 lakh people have tested positive for COVID in US. More than 5 lakh 74,000 people have died of COVID in the country. And staying with international news, Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg said that she would pay a fine of 20,000 Norwegian crowns levied by police for breaking COVID-19 social distancing rules by organizing a family gathering to celebrate her 60th birthday. The two-term premier has apologized several times for organizing the event at a mountain resort late February, despite a government ban on gatherings of more than 10 people. Solberg, who faces elections for parliament in September, has championed strict rules to curb the spread of virus, resulting in some of Europe's lowest rates of infections and deaths. But Norway saw a rapid rise in infections in the first quarter for 2021, led by more contagious variants of the virus, forcing the government to tighten restrictions in late March. And staying with international news, in France, according to a new study, since the British variant of COVID-19 is now dominant, a full 90% of the adults will need to be vaccinated before the country can get back to normal without risking a fresh surge of the virus. Specialists, however, feel that the 90% goal would be virtually impossible to meet. The report comes at a time when country's hospital system is under heavy pressure from the pandemic, with the number of people treated in intensive care units for COVID-19 at the highest in almost a year this week. That's not all. The country has also recently entered its third lockdown phase. Currently, there are 49.80 lakh total cases and 98,395 deaths reported so far. And shifting focus to Brazil, where Brazil's health minister Marcelo Queiroga on Friday says there was no magic wand to solve the country's pandemic woes after the South American nation set record of more than 4,000 COVID deaths per day this week. The deadly virus has claimed more than 3,48,000 lives in Brazil, second only to US. 1 in 4 deaths from the pandemic this week were in Brazil, where a brutal wave is overwhelming hospitals as well. And WHO Director General Tedros says there is shocking imbalance in the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines worldwide, and that most countries do not have anywhere near enough shots to cover health workers and others at high risk. Tedros at the home says that more than 700 million jabs have been administered worldwide against the disease, but 87% have gone to high-income or upper-middle-income countries, with low-income countries receiving just 0.2%. Tedros added, decrying the scarcity of supply, the problem is not getting vaccines out of COVAX. The problem is getting them in. The COVAX program has delivered nearly 38.4 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to 102 countries across 6 continents since 6 weeks after it began to roll out supplies. It aims to deliver more than 2 billion doses this year, but has faced delays. In other important news from across the globe, U.S. President Joe Biden on Friday asked Congress to authorize $1.5 trillion federal spending plan. The budget proposal reflects an 8.4% increase in base funding from the current year and would focus on health, education and climate. The request marks Biden's first discretionary spending proposal, which is a precursor to the full annual budget that the U.S. president aims to release later in the spring. Biden's early blueprint calls for almost 16% increase in funding across non-defense domestic agencies, highlighting the White House's guiding belief that a bigger, better resource government in Washington can address or help address the country's most pressing political and economic challenges. About two-thirds of the massive budget is mandatory spending for benefits including Social Security and Medicare. Joe Biden's maiden budget proposal makes up about half of the U.S. discretionary budget, which would be an increase by 1.7% to $753 billion. It is lower than former President Donald Trump's 2022 projections. As for health and medical research, the U.S. budget proposal includes $8.7 billion in funding for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, representing what the White House says is the largest increase in 2 decades. The budget also allocates $6.5 billion for a new research agency to direct federal funding to diabetes, Alzheimer's and cancer research, and $10.7 billion to research and prevent opioid addiction, representing nearly $4 billion increase from last year. And as for immigration, the budget proposal includes $52 billion for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, with about $1.2 billion going to investments in modern security technology. And staying with U.S. President Biden on Friday also ordered the creation of a bipartisan commission to study potential reforms to the Supreme Court, which also include whether to expand the number of justices. In an executive order, Biden said the commission would tackle the merits and legality of the specific High Court reform proposal, along with the contentious idea of expanding the court. Reform advocates have recently pushed for term limits to the justice. The commission will be made up of a group of liberal and conservative legal scholars, former federal judges and lawyers who have appeared before the court. It will hold public meetings and have 180 days to report its findings. The White House on Friday said it was keeping a close watch on increased Chinese military activities in Taiwan Strait and called Beijing's recent actions potentially destabilizing. White House Press Secretary Yen Psaki says China has taken increasingly coercive action to undercut democracy in Taiwan.
We're not looking, as you know, for confrontation with China. Our focus and our relationship is one based on steep competition. We have been clearly, publicly and privately expressed our concerns, our growing concerns about China's aggression towards Taiwan. China has taken increasingly coercive action to undercut democracy in Taiwan. We've seen a concerning increase in PRC military activity in the Taiwan Strait, which we believe is potentially destabilizing. So we are watching that closely. I can't make any other predictions from here. Of course, the Department of Defense and others would be in the lead on making those assessments.
Staying with international news, the first week of talks to restore Iran's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers concluded yesterday, with all sides hopeful of continuing the discussions that started in Vienna. A joint commission meeting of the remaining participants of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, Iran, China, Russia, Germany, France and United Kingdom, was held in the Austrian capital yesterday following a virtual meeting last week and in-person meeting on Tuesday. The talks will continue on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has warned that it will not lift every single economic sanction that former President Donald Trump imposed on Iran, despite pressure from Iran to do so. The U.S. officials' comments followed a tweet from Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, who said all Trump-era sanctions need to be lifted before Iran would return to compliance with the deal. Zarif added Iran will reciprocate following rapid verification. And on Sunday, Ecuadorians will choose between a conservative banker and a left-wing economist in a presidential runoff that follow months of debate over the country's economic malaise can be best treated through socialism or market-friendly policies. Polls broadly indicate socialist Andre Arauz with a lead over rival Guillermo Lasso. Victory for Arauz would further consolidate a string of leftist electoral victories in South America in the last year, while a win for the Lasso would leave Ecuador in the political and commercial orbit of the United States as he seeks to create jobs through foreign investment. More international news. Germany's anti-immigrant party, Alternative for Germany, on Friday presented their election program ahead of the country's general election scheduled on 26th of September. Now, under the short slogan "Germany but normal," the AfD promised they would campaign for safety, justice and a strong society. With 12.6% support, AfD became the third biggest party in Bundestag and also has lawmakers in all 16 regional assemblies. However, its support has fallen to some 9% in recent surveys. After decades of inactivity, La Soufrière volcano on the eastern Caribbean island of St. Vincent on Friday erupted, sending dark plumes of ash and smoke billowing into the sky. Thousands of people from the surrounding villages were forced to evacuate after the volcanic eruption. As per the disaster risk reduction in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, heavy ash fall has halted the process somewhat since visibility turned extremely poor. Dormant since 1979, the volcano started showing signs of activity in December last year, spewing steam and smoke and rumbling away. The eruption column was estimated to reach 10-kilometer high. The University of West Indies Seismic Research Centre said, which also warned other explosive eruptions could occur likely. Well, almost 4 years after the liberation of Mosul from Islamic State, the city's largest theatre, Al Rabia, still partly lies in ruins. Over the past few weeks, groups of local volunteers worked to remove debris and dust from the theatre ahead of the newly founded Water Orchestra's maiden performance on Thursday. The orchestra performed a series of traditional and folkloric musical pieces. And with that, it's time to wrap up this newscast on DD India. Thanks for tuning in. Namaskar.